Hello and welcome to yet another edition of Plank of the Week. These come around very quickly now. There are so many planks, we have to do them on a very regular basis. I'm delighted to say as well that because we are now able to hire proper people to come in and do it, all sorts of people have now started to come back. Russell Quirk is here, Belinda is here, and I haven't seen either of you guys for quite a long time. So welcome back to Plank of the Week.
It's been a while, back to normality-ish.
Back to normality, yeah, because I think it's probably the first time this year for both of you, isn't it?
Yes, I think last time was just before Christmas.
I know.
Did the Christmas
yes,
special.
because you did the Christmas special, of course, Plank of the Year. Yeah. Well, do you know what? Plank of the Year is a runaway at the moment for Harry and Meghan. I mean, they're so far ahead of everybody else. I don't think anyone's
it's only
gonna
May.
catch
The gift that keeps on giving.
Every single week, we have to carry somebody over from the previous week, and every single week it's Harry or Meghan or both.
They'd hardly like to run out of steam.
And it's going to be Harry, I'm afraid it's going to be Harry again this week for his latest outburst in which he's talking about his trauma to Oprah in yet another series of television interviews.
The shock of it.
I mean, I'm sort of curious.
Whilst they also seek to protect their privacy.
Well, I'm curious about their definition of privacy. You know, they're literally not out the papers for a day.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
It's incredible, isn't it?
Yeah.
Now, Belinda, I feel like I should offer you the opportunity to kick us off with your first plank of the week.
Yeah, so my first plank of the week is John Bercow.
Yes.
He is fresh in my kitchen of plankery because I only just saw him this morning.
Yep.
And he was being interviewed and obviously doing the usual and claiming that Boris was a liar, lying about statistics and data. This is the same man who tried to kill Brexit by 1,000 cuts and circumnavigated the PM in the cabinet, colluding with the EU, trying to rerun or scupper Brexit. This man is not a man of honour.
He's certainly not.
So, but the funny bit came when later in the interview he was talking about voting for Sadiq Khan. And that he was, a wonderful mayor and deserved another term. So that, number one, bit bonkers.
Well, I mean, the thing is, as well, he's obviously on some kind of doing the rounds thing because he was on Question Time the other night as well, which I very rarely see. But I was out so late on Thursday from a lunch that I got home. Question Time was on, so I actually just watched it for 5 minutes. 10 o'clock, yeah. And I mean, he was on that as well. And people are going, "Oh, isn't it great to see John Bercow? Isn't he fantastic?" But
do you think he's changed agent? Because actually, he's kind of fallen by the wayside over the last few months.
We
haven't seen him.
Well, I think he's desperate to get onto something like Strictly. He wants to sort of go up the ranks and become a sort of D-list celeb and earn money by doing...
His dance partner would have to be pretty small.
Sure,
I was going to say that, but I thought I wouldn't. But I'm glad you did.
But I would like to say the thing he said that I thought was quite funny is he said that he'd left the Conservatives and he was now soft left. And that this was very stunning and brave for him coming out. And he said that he thought that the electorate would find that really authentic.
Really?
And I'm thinking, hang on a minute, mate. 2016, when you were pretending to be Conservative, you could have at least let the public know that you were, one of Corbyn's lovies and back then.
What exactly is soft left then? So who in the Labour Party is he aligning himself with? Because it's not Keir Starmer, is it?
Well, in his biography, he praised Tony Blair a lot.
Okay.
While slagging off all his Tory comrades.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, there's nobody in the Labour Party that is aligned with anything, let alone each other. I think it's fair to say.
And how dangerous for the Labour Party to be the home of someone like John Bercow.
Yeah.
If it's perfect for someone like John, I mean, it doesn't bode well for the Labour Party.
Do you think they won't be welcoming him with open arms, perhaps?
I don't know.
And isn't this just him being bitter and twisted because he didn't get a peerage?
That as well.
Well, it could be that, you see, because he might be hoping that he'll get nominated by the Labour Party, since he's not going to get one from the Tories.
It's his way to get
that could be
a title behind the back, through the back doors.
Because he is. I mean, he's an incredibly self-serving individual, isn't he?
He's a pompous, pumped-up little pigeon.
You're absolutely right. I can't disagree with any of that.
But when you say pumped up...
Well, no, it's his chest. He's very full of himself.
Not vertically.
Not vertically. And remember, he was accused of a lot of bullying when he left.
He was actually, yes.
To stand high and mighty today, this morning on telly, and preach to everyone that he's now this gentle, sweet cartoon character of the soft left. We remember what you did, Bercow, and we're not going to forget what the Lib lefties tried to do.
I wonder if he'll come back eventually as a Labour MP then. Maybe it's not the peerage. Maybe
good luck winning a seat for Labour, because at the moment it doesn't seem to be very easy for them to do.
It would only be in London or Wales.
Don't stand in Batley, whatever
London
you do.
or Wales,
no,
that'll be it.
London or Wales, that'll be fine. Putney, People's Republic of, or in fact, where else did they win something? They won something
they won
West Yorkshire.
An obscure mayor.
Yeah, mayor of West Yorkshire, which is for the first time now you can be mayor of just a couple of random towns.
Yeah.
I mean, what's that all about?
Yeah.
What's the point of it?
But wasn't that the one where the MP stood? So now there's no MP for that.
There's
town.
no MP, and they're going to
lose
lose that
share
seat.
the job and take both monies.
Apparently used to be on Coronation Street. I'm not a fan of Coronation Street, but apparently she's an actress.
A little stardust.
Does a little bit, yeah.
It's a little bit dull at the moment.
Yeah, it really is. But I mean, it's a nightmare. Anyway, we'll come on, I'm sure, to Keir Keir Starmer later on in the show, but so who's your first nomination?
Well, I guess leading on from Belinda's, my nomination is the entire London electorate. All of you, by the way, all of you that voted for Sadiq Khan. What a stupid thing to do. So that man over 5 years, obviously had an extended term, didn't he? So 4 years became 5 years, which allowed him to do even more damage than otherwise he would have done in 4.
Because actually he did most of the damage in the last year.
Well,
during
he did.
the lockdown, when he started to close off half the city.
Destroyed TfL not once but twice. Has overseen an absolutely abhorrent increase in crime, particularly knife crime and murder. And obviously my sweet spot really is housing. And actually crunching the numbers on that, what he delivered in 5 years versus what he actually pledged to, particularly affordable housing, the stuff that's really important. He delivered about 22% of what he pledged he would. And so, albeit on a reduced vote, the fact that so many people voted for Sadiq Khan, when there were so many other candidates, of course.
There was like 20 candidates.
I've never seen so many Count
candidates.
Binface, who actually was a favourite of mine. I think I would have put a cross in the box for Count Binface. But Sadiq Khan's romped home, does another 3 years.
Although he had less votes this time than he did last time, and he got a much smaller margin of victory.
Reduced share of the vote. But, I mean, how bad has a politician got to be not to get re-elected, given his track record?
I know.
And he brought the office of the London Mayor into such disrepute by doing that ridiculous, childish balloon of the president, whatever you think of Trump. I will never forget how embarrassing it was to have the president arrive in this ridiculous balloon being sanctioned by our mayor.
I know.
And he brought the office to such, basically in the ditch, and he hasn't lifted it up again. And I am disappointed.
No, I think as long as London is represented by him, it will always be a bad thing because we have no. I mean, as a London, funny enough, he put a tweet out just after he won, thanking everybody that voted for him, but also saying, I intend to give a voice to all those people, even those who didn't vote for me. To which I said, well, you haven't given me a voice, and you never agreed to come on my show. He didn't answer it, and so I expect nothing's going to change.
No, he'd be way too chicken to come on your show.
He would be.
And it was interesting. Within minutes of him being re-elected, he broke the law. Did you see as he walked into the London Assembly, he hugged everybody?
Did he?
Which, of course, at that point, 2 or 3 days ago, was still illegal.
One rule for thee, one rule for me.
Of course.
I can't believe we live in a country where it's illegal to hug anyone, by the way.
Oh, who's listening to that? And worryingly, there are the people who do listen to that.
No, there are.
That's slightly scary that there are people waiting to be told they can hug.
The most ridiculous thing that I've seen, I think, over the course of the last year is the ludicrous questions that get asked at these press briefings. Because I think it was Romilly Weeks from ITN who actually said to Boris Johnson, who should we hug?
Who are you going to hug?
Who are we allowed to hug?
The member of the public, the question before, did you see? The member of the public that asked the question said, can you explain the difference in the different COVID variances in terms of infection and death rate? Brilliant question from a member of the public. And then as someone put on Twitter, isn't it incredible that a professional journalist that's in the press pack then goes and asks such a ridiculous question?
Really
who are you going to hug?
They're going to be hug
waste
booths
of skin.
soon. Little hug booths set up along sort of street centres and shopping centres for people to re-educate themselves onto how to hug properly and COVID compliant.
You just have to ask Kay Burley and Beth Rigby how to hug, because they were hugging last Christmas, weren't they?
Well, they were. Or Layla Moran, of course, who yesterday said that actually you shouldn't be given discretion in terms of who you should hug.
Really?
You should be
Well,
told
she'll
by
hug
the
anyone,
government.
though, because she's pansexual.
Well,
presumably that means
she can hug anything and everything.
Anything.
Yes.
Anything.
Including your
Cats,
laptop,
dogs,
including
with a
you,
pulse. Beautiful.
me.
Yeah.
I'm
all at the same
excited.
time,
I'm
by the way.
turning into such a hug tart. The more I'm told not to hug, I just want to go out and grab people and just give them a big
Hug
old
tart
squeeze.
sounds a good word.
I'm a hug tart.
Sounds like some kind of strange biscuit.
That should be a
That's
hashtag.
true, actually.
Aldi's.
That should
Maybe
be your
I'm a
hashtag.
strange
Tarts.
biscuit.
Maybe you are. I can't say. Well, I'm going to stick with your original John Bercow, and I'm going to go with GMB as planks because they've hired the most hated man in Britain to try and be the new Piers Morgan this week, Alastair Campbell, the man who sexed up the dossier that led us into war with Iraq, the man who is certainly suggested to have been involved somehow in the death of old Dr. Kelly, even though I'm sure that's not true. But, I mean, if nothing else, he may have driven him to committing suicide. I mean, everybody hates Alastair Campbell, and every single reaction to him being on has been negative, because aside from all of that anyway, he's just not a professional presenter. And people think that it's an easy thing to do to go on television and be a presenter, but it really isn't. I mean, Piers Morgan was very good at it, and he was engaging, and he actually made Susanna Reid look good. And I've nothing against Susanna Reid, but without Piers Morgan, she's much less than 50% of the show.
She's a mannequin.
She's much less than 50% of the show, because you have to remember she came from the BBC, and everyone who comes from the BBC inevitably is a little bit bland. And she's desperately trying now to be serious, which is a really bad idea, because she should be fluffy. Not because she's a woman, but because that's the show.
Yeah,
but the show is not, and funny, and she should be making fun of Alastair Campbell. But instead,
to your point,
it's all about, mental health, and they're all sort of stroking their chins.
And Alastair Campbell this morning, to your point, lambasting liars. You think, wow, that's
that takes some doing.
It's pretty sweet coming from him.
And a man that definitely needs a charisma transplant, doesn't he?
Yeah, he really does.
Actually, I think he's probably one of the most charismatic from the left because they're so thin on the ground. It's so hard to find someone who's jazzy and quirky because often to be fun you have to be a bit risky. Risk taking. You got to risk to offend, risk to make jokes. The left don't make jokes anymore.
No.
The left
actually he can be. I mean, he can be quite cutting and he can be quite funny. Yeah. I mean, because I've known Alastair Campbell for many years, as most journalists have, and he can be very horrible as well. But I mean, obviously he's been given this kind of license to be a presenter, and they're probably directing him and telling him what to say and what not to say, and it's just not really working.
Well, and also he's kind of a self-ordained mental health champion now, which I don't want to be cynical, but has he got a book out soon?
Well, he's always got a book out because he continually writes new chapters of his diary. So I mean, his diaries have sold very well. But I mean, he is a manic depressive. There's no question about that. And as much as that doesn't mean he can't do certain things, it does mean that he's not what you might regard as somebody who is always going to come bouncing into the studio with a smile on his face. And he's talking about these serious things. And it's not what GM, and this is the reason I'm putting, I'm not making him the plank, I'm making GMB the plank, because it's called Good Morning Britain. It's supposed to be a bright, breezy, airy kind of show. Bit of jazz hands, a bit of showbiz, a bit of reality, a couple of arguments with people, but good-natured kind of banter, which is what Piers and Susanna were all about. But since Piers is gone, they've lost 79% of their audience.
It doesn't surprise me at all.
So they've still got 21% of that.
Well, mind you, that was about a week ago. They could have lost 85% by now. Yeah. But it's just awful now.
But look, he's winning. We're talking about him. And this is
Alastair.
the thing. Yeah, you see, he is being talked about, whether you like him or not. And I think that's one of the reasons they made him president.
Yes, maybe.
But it won't make him better.
Yeah, but it won't. Yeah, but the trouble is, the problem with television and radio, as I know very well, is that it's all very well getting somebody to watch your show, but they have to like it.
Yeah.
Or hate it. If they're kind of in somewhere in between.
Kind of
that works.
Yeah. So people used to love Piers or hate Piers, but they all watch it. Whereas with this, you kind of just go, it's not very good. It's not because you don't like him. He's just not very good. I mean, Howard Stern always used to say that if you like Howard Stern, you listen to him for 20 minutes. If you hate him, you listen to him for half an hour. And that's kind of, that's the trick. That's the trick. And Piers must be sitting around, just laughing his socks off. Because it was probably the best thing that ever happened to him, as it was to leave the Mirror, to leave GMB.
Yeah, true.
So who's your second?
So my second is the New Zealand Olympic Committee.
Yes.
Because now I'm slightly wary about making them a plank this week.
Because you might be cancelled.
I feel like
by the mass hordes.
I'm going to hear sirens and the police are going to take me away at any moment. But I've got to say it. The New Zealand Olympic Committee have come out this week saying it's highly likely they're going to include a trans woman called Laurel Hubbard in their weightlifting women's category in the Tokyo Olympics.
Right.
And this has set off a load of alarm bells, of course, and people would prefer no one to talk about it. And in fact...
Yeah, she's just supposed to pretend it's not happening, right?
And as a woman, if I complain saying, hang on a minute, Laurel was once male, didn't transition till her 30s,
right.
And in her 30s she had previously competed as a male in weightlifting and not got any medals.
Right.
Now she's competing in the female category, and female weightlifters that complain, that have worked their whole lives, become the best in their country, only to face a male at the Olympics, if they complain, they're told to shut up, sit down, be silent, or you'll lose your sponsors. And that they're transphobic. So this basically
is
could
Lauren
be the beginning.
Winning lots of
well, Lauren's going to win.
He won two. She won. I have to say she. And this is no disrespect. Seriously, it's no disrespect to the trans community.
Tread carefully.
No.
Okay, because
no,
I
listen,
really
I did
don't
this
want
last week with Emily
to
Carver because she was talking about Edinburgh University and how you now have to sign off your emails with your pronouns. So he, she, she had to explain cisgender to me. Yeah, she had to explain cisgender to me, which I didn't know was a bad thing.
And cisgender privilege, by the way.
Well, cisgender apparently is a bad thing. Did you know that?
No.
No. I didn't know what it was. And then I found out I was one. I then realised I was in the wrong somehow immediately.
Yeah.
By
not
being
just in
cisgender.
the wrong, but you could lose your job as a female weightlifter now. You could lose your sponsorship. If you dare complain that now, right at the top of your game, you have to compete against a 43-year-old biological male who has better bone density, muscle mass.
Shouldn't she be disqualified on the grounds of age? What's a 43-year-old doing in the Olympics?
This is the thing. Much older
Being
males,
a man, she's still going to outlive 25-year-old women. She's going to win everything. Go figure. There should be no such thing as female sport at school because there's no point.
Well, the Olympics started in 1894, the modern game as we know it today, and it was only male, and women had to work really hard to get their own category. It wasn't until 1928 that we started to get some equality at the Olympics. Full circle, right the way round to 2021, and we no longer have a women's category anymore. And it's wrong, and
bizarre,
people need to have the courage to be disliked and come out and talk about it, just like Caitlyn Jenner. And actually, many trans women are not pro this at all. They just want to be left alone.
Look at what's happened to J.K. Rowling,
Yeah.
you know, who came out and was actually disowned by all the people that appeared and have become millionaires thanks to her in all the Harry Potter films.
Yeah.
All the actors came out and castigated her because she doesn't believe that if you've got a penis you can be a woman.
Yeah, female
It's
biology
not that radical, is it?
It's not transphobic,
I mean, imagine going, what?
I know.
What? Sorry.
No, they threw her under a bus too. So unfortunately, the New Zealand Olympic Committee gets it this week because they're the first big committee that come out saying that they're wanting a male to compete in a weightlifting competition with females. It's not right.
Amazing. You're going to have to go far to beat that one.
Okay, well,
what have you got for us?
I'll have a good go. So talking of strange women, my next nomination is Gwyneth Paltrow.
Oh yes.
On the basis
we love Gwyneth.
We love Gwyneth. So it's reported through The Guardian, who have apparently interviewed her, that whilst the rest of us have been suffering immeasurably in lockdown, you know, people have been losing their jobs, they've been losing their businesses, people have been dying, of course. Let's not gloss over that. Gwyneth apparently this week was asked by The Guardian what her lowest point was during the lockdown, and apparently her lowest point was the fact that she not only had to eat bread. I mean, can you imagine having to eat bread? I mean, that's a low of all lows.
Yeah.
She resorted to drinking up to 2 cocktails every evening, which she kind of seems to want to thrash herself to within an inch of her life over, because apparently it's a very, very bad thing. And of course, this is from the woman that apparently just spent $8,000 on a hiking necklace.
What?
And has candles that smell
of
a hiking necklace. $8,000 on a necklace to wear when she goes hiking. That's how messed up this lady is. And of course, she's the purveyor of candles that smell like
a lady garden.
Like lady bits, like vaginas. So
I've always wanted one of those.
Yeah, so she's not messed up at all, but what an utter plank of a woman.
I know.
It's totally
really
peak,
is.
it's peak Gwynny.
But
I love it.
Yeah, these people are absolutely so out of touch, aren't they? I mean, I was laughing the other day. I mean, having said that Harry's going to go, I might have to make it Harry and Meghan who carry over, because Meghan, of course, appeared on some other TV show. I think she was broadcasting to a crowd of people at a live event that she couldn't turn up at, talking about how terrible it had been in the lockdown and the pandemic for women, and particularly women of colour, while wearing an £18,000 Cartier watch, which was gifted to her by Harry, which used to belong to Princess Diana.
Yeah.
And you're actually sitting there going, yeah, it's been terrible.
But
your watch is worth 18,000 quid.
Yeah. But they genuinely think these woke celebrities, I mean, that they have been disadvantaged by something that, of course, look, to the rest of it is absolutely pointless and meaningless. And you know, the how out of touch, how elitist, how privileged these people are. I mean, but then to say it, so to think it is one thing, but to say it to the bloody Guardian,
I know.
so that it's going to be
as if you're going to
published
get sympathy,
everywhere,
and it will give you some sort of victimhood.
Look at me,
currency.
I mean,
and I bet the cocktails were made out of quinona and kelp.
No, and yes, apparently so wheatgrass. Yeah.
Is she saying that eating bread is a bad thing then?
Yes.
Is that why it's a bad?
No carbs.
That's how it got to her. It affected her mental health so much she had to resort to bread.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's a bad time for her.
It's definitely
Do
first
we know
world
what sort of bread it was?
I've
Was
got
it
no
sourdough? You know,
but I'd love you to get her on your show and ask
Oh,
her.
please.
I'd love to get Gwyneth on the show.
I don't want her to go away. I love these characters that you can have a bit of a giggle about. And her whole
and she must know.
uncoupling from Chris Martin.
Yeah, the uncoupling
and
was
Bill
brilliant.
Gates now talking about, we're just not on the same path anymore. We're not growing together, about his wife. I'm thinking, you've been married for 30 years.
Right.
The last thing on my mind is whether I'm growing together with my husband.
Don't you think there's something going
Where's
on there?
the wine?
Do you not think that she's got somebody else? Because there's no reason why he would split up after 27 years of marriage.
Well, don't forget, Jeff Bezos has also just split up, hasn't he? So
yeah, but he had somebody to go to. That's why he split up, though. I mean, the point is that if you're in a marriage for 27 years and you're not on the same path, you just carry on, don't you? You just go, I'll see you at the weekend, you know, probably have separate bedrooms, you might go and have an affair or something, but you wouldn't actually split up. It's too complicated.
Well, nothing wrong with some comfy slippers and a pipe.
Exactly right.
Nestle in.
I'll take your word for it.
To the rest of your life, it's
and
lovely.
some bread,
Some bread.
You know, make a note of it.
I love it that carbs has become like the swear word in some parts of.
But it just seems to me that if you would only leave your husband and or wife because somebody else wants you to.
Yeah, I want Ricky Gervais back to have a word about Gwyneth and Bill Gates, because I think he'd do a fantastic scene.
You really do miss.
I miss Ricky Gervais.
It is a whole comedy set. It's not just 10 minutes as we've done.
I mean, that's why the Oscars were so boring, because he wasn't hosting it, and he wasn't making fun of everybody, because they really do deserve it.
They do.
I mean, last time I saw her, she was doing this gloop thing, doesn't she? She does this gloop website where she was steaming her vagina. I don't know what it is with her and her vagina, but she was steaming it. I don't know why you would do that. I don't have one.
Maybe
I think Chris Martin, her husband, who I presume is still her husband, bears some responsibility.
I think he's given her maybe vagina trauma or something.
Are they not divorced? Aren't they divorced?
I don't know. Who knows?
And then they've uncoupled. They are divorced, I think.
I think so. Yeah. He's now re-evaluating his life, apparently.
So who got custody of the basket of fruit or whatever their kids are called?
Apple is what
Apple, pear, and cherry or something.
I don't know.
Oh, it's lovely. I hope they never disappear, because they're such fun.
Yeah, he's apparently re-evaluating his life, because he's worked out while the lockdown's been on that there's more to life than being a self-obsessed millionaire rock star. Yeah. Apparently.
Maybe he's re-evaluating his life because he thinks his wife's a bit of a nutter.
Well, there is that. But then he's also moved on as Chris Martin, isn't he? You know, he's not short of lady friends, I think.
No, not at all. And they all seem to follow the same sort of similar pattern.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's not much point being a rock star being married, is there? I mean, sorry, you call me old-fashioned.
Yeah.
No, you've got to go and have some fun.
I've always wondered why you would be married. I mean, it's like when the Rolling Stones start taking their wives on tour, you kind of go, maybe it's time to give up.
Well, especially if you're wandering around the house suffocated by the smell of vagina smelling candles, I suppose.
Well, yeah, and steam.
I was given that
freshly
candle,
baked bread.
and it's actually
you were given the candle.
I was given them.
And does it? Can I just ask, very discreet, does it bear any resemblance?
Well, it's very musty.
Are we allowed to do this?
So I don't know whether there's incense around her lady garden while she was, taking the scent for the candle. But it's very musty. I don't particularly recognise it.
The candle.
It's very pleasant.
It's
the
quite,
candle.
I mean, it's good marketing, I suppose. Because again, we're all talking about it.
She's a genius. That's why I love Gwyneth. We can take the mickey out of her, but I do like her. She's quite.
But they're probably 500 quid.
She is quirky.
I'm
sure they are. I'm sure they are. Absolutely right. Right, my second one has to be Keir Starmer, Sir Keir Starmer, because the Labour Party have had, even for them, the week from hell. And I mean, they are about as useless a political party as any political party that has ever been. When you think back to kind of, the party of Clement Attlee, who formed the NHS, the party even of Harold Wilson, and the white heat of the technological revolution of the 60s. Even Jim Callaghan, was better than. By the way, he was the last properly elected Labour Party Prime Minister before.
When was that, late 70s?
1976. If you take away the Blair years, right, and everybody in the Labour Party would like to, because they don't like Tony Blair anymore. They think he was a bit of a rotter, and they don't.
And he was a bit of a Tory centrist kind of thing anyway.
You don't want him back.
They'd rather be out of power protection.
Yeah, they'd much rather be out of power protection. So 1976 is the last time they actually elected a proper, what they regard as Labour Prime Minister. I mean, that's ridiculous, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I don't see any chance that they're ever going to be elected again. He's managed to lose Hartlepool, right, which is what you would have to be describing as probably, I think it's been
never been Tories.
I think it was Tory in the 50s, I think, somehow. I don't know how that happened.
But even under Corbyn, 2 MPs got elected in Hartlepool. Right. So for Keir to have lost...
Yeah. What must you be thinking as a party? Corbyn apparently was terrible, so you replace him with Keir Starmer, who's immeasurably worse.
Yeah.
I mean...
But also, he just can't get anything right, can he? I mean, he goes to a pub in Bath, he gets thrown out. I mean, that was ridiculous. Yeah. And the guy's going, I'm a Labour voter.
But what's worse, the election defeat, the humiliation for Starmer, where, of course, he said that he was going to take full responsibility, and 24 hours later took full responsibility by sacking Angela Rayner.
Except he couldn't even do that right, because he sacked Angela Rayner from the job that nobody knew she had.
Yeah, and gave her another job that didn't exist.
Yeah, and she's now still got the job that everybody thought she had, so she hasn't actually been sacked at all.
Yeah.
And yesterday she was pictured standing with him, looking as if everything was all sweetness and light, even though she's been fired.
Do you not feel a bit sorry for Keir, though?
Well,
I mean, he's got to juggle momentum on one side with the sort of Tony Blair lot, Adonis lot on the other side.
Yeah, no, I don't. He took the job. He must have known, what the job entails, having seen what had happened to Corbyn and Ed Miliband, of course, before. So, no, I don't think we should feel sorry for him.
He's making Ed Miliband look like quite a good leader, though.
Yeah, maybe he'll come back.
I mean, that's extraordinary.
The biggest mistake, though, of these Labour leaders and cabinet, shadow cabinet MPs is that they forget they are stained from the Brexit years.
Yeah.
You cannot actively try and overturn someone's vote and not be tainted with it for the rest of your life. They just think, the electorate would have forgotten about that, and we were only trying to save the people from themselves.
Exactly right, but that's why they lost Hartlepool, because they put someone up
that
not only lost his seat because he was basically a Remainer, and had lost his seat because he was a Remainer, thinking that they could put him into a seat where they voted 70% to leave the EU, and it was all going to be okay. Of course, it's not going to be okay.
And Keir was terrible during the grooming gang scandal, and
let them
Labour
off.
was all. People haven't forgotten what Labour did. Rotherham now, I think, is a Conservative council majority, so we'll hope to see some change.
But that's
there.
the other thing
that
we don't know all the details of because you don't retain it. But an awful lot of Labour Party councillors have now been kicked out and have been replaced by Tory Party councillors. I think it's about 58 or something. And it's extraordinary how they've managed to just lose the grip of what was quite a good opposition. Even with Corbyn, they had an opposition. They had a point. I mean, Keir Starmer just doesn't have a point. If he was ringing the show, you'd go, "What's your point? Get on with it. What are you going to tell me?"
He's famously called Captain Hindsight, because of course, he looks back and he also tries to lobby for something to be done that he knows the Conservative government are about to do. But look, no personality and look, no policies. You can't just sit there as a goal-hanging member of the opposition.
Right? This is the guy who, in the last or in the Brexit sort of situation, basically in the Theresa May election, said, "Well, if you're a Remain constituency, we're for Remain, and if you're a Leave constituency, we want to leave." And you go, "What do you think? They're not talking to each other?
You're going to get away with that?
You know, that's not going to work, is it?"
But Mike, how do you then explain why Oxfordshire and Cambridgeshire lost their Conservative councillors and went for Labour councillors?
Well,
this
because
isn't talked about very much. So
Chipping Norton, right?
And Wales is all Labour now.
Well, Wales. Well, I was saying this earlier in the week that the proper opposition now is in Scotland with the SNP and with Drakeford in Wales. There is no opposition to the Tory Party really in England. But for Chipping Norton, which is one of those kind of rather cosy, it's a bit like what do you call that? The Midsummer Murders kind of place.
Yes.
You know, it's very white, very middle class, and it's very kind of
it's like London. It's right on.
It's right on.
Yeah.
It's
So
like Putney.
Perfect
for Labour. Yeah,
it's a reflection of the London electorate.
It's literally John Bercow's dream.
Yeah, in 2019, the only constituency they gained was Putney. And you go, what? Well, so they lost Blythe Valley, which used to be a mining community before the Tories destroyed it, which has now gone Tory, and they've got Putney. And you go...
But the intellectual left elite are the ones that vote Labour.
It's not so much the Wheel Tappers and Shunters Working Men's Club, it's all down the Half Moon for a bit of jazz on a Sunday afternoon.
The Emily Thorne
jazz
on the penthouse, Tunbridge Wells.
Yeah, that's what it is. That's exactly. It's very bizarre. So Keir Starmer, I mean, I don't think you'll see out the year. I think the Labour Party will defenestrate him in some way and will find somebody else hapless
but that's
to
the
run
question.
in his place.
Who? I was literally sitting there at the weekend thinking, actually, who on earth would they? Who could they possibly select that would be better than Keir Starmer, better than Jeremy Corbyn? I mean, Andy Burnham's had a great showing, of course, in Manchester.
But he's run
got
twice
to be an
and
MP.
lost, though.
Yeah, but he's got. But maybe come back, all is forgiven.
He's a plank.
But he is
I'm
popular,
not in favour of Andy
popular in
Burnham.
Manchester.
Popular in Manchester.
But then he's got to come back and
So
he'll have to
Liam
win a
Gallagher.
by-election, become an MP. So, I don't know what their alternatives are. They haven't got anybody else.
Caroline
And Pallister thought they should
Flint
actually elect a woman.
Caroline Flint was good.
I really like
I mean,
Caroline
wouldn't it be
Flint.
nice
Where's
if they
she?
actually
Why
managed to find, instead of firing women out of the cabinet, how about you actually elect one?
Well, it depends if they can define what a woman is, because they're
that's
obviously
true.
pro-sep.
Maybe they should get that.
That's a good point.
Maybe get that bloke
a
from
good
New
point.
Zealand to run.
Yeah.
You know, he could be the first female leader of the Labour Party.
But Labour needs to be good. The Tories the Tories need a good opposition, otherwise they go
do.
off the path and they become all wet and liberal again. We need,
as they have.
Let's just see where Boris takes the whole climate change thing and hope he doesn't take it too far. But a lot went to the Greens as well, which was interesting, because you'd have thought...
Yes, because why vote Green if you've already got the Tories? But I was talking to Richard Tice about this the other day, and he said he thinks there's space now on the right of the Tory party for a second party, because they've gone so far towards the middle. That actually, not necessarily as right as Brexit Party, but right of Boris anyway, and maybe that's where the future lies.
But the danger is that splits the vote, of course, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Which is kind of what happened in London, I think. Because you had so many right-leaning candidates that it let Sadiq Khan back in with only 5% more.
Yeah,
than
I guess
Sean
if
Bailey.
you'd taken 5 of those out, maybe he would have won.
Yeah, it would have been identical, 40-40.
Although people said to me, imagine what would have happened if Sean Bailey had won. He wouldn't have known what to do, because he wasn't expecting to win.
Yeah, but the polls were
have no
naughty.
idea.
Yeah, because the polls convinced people that Sean didn't have a chance of winning, so people then, I think, were more relaxed with their vote and put it with people that they knew weren't going to win. And I think if the polls had been more honest and real, more people would have thought it's worth voting for Sean.
And dare I venture, if the Conservative Party had got behind Sean Bailey properly, which they
let him
really
down.
didn't do.
They hung him out to dry.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, they didn't fancy it. Right, so number 3
right,
for you.
So number 3 is my favourite Frenchman, Macron.
Yeah.
He is my plank. And I would like to ask, did any of you start humming that "Who do you think you are kidding, Mr. Macron," when you saw that image of Jersey with all the retreating French boats?
Wasn't that great? I loved that. I mean, we were literally cheering from the rafters here at Talk Radio, because you can imagine. Because apart from the fact that it was election day, which is normally quite a boring day, so you can't do any politics anyway, right? Because people are going out to vote. And we were like, this is amazing, because you knew it wasn't going to come to anything. It was just going to be a waste of everybody's time.
Well, also, I mean, he reminds me a little bit of that lion from Wizard of Oz. It's like, let me at him, against the British Navy. It's just never going to work. And poor Jersey, all they were doing was adhering to the Brexit agreement.
Right.
French fishermen need a licence now.
And also they've granted loads of licences, right?
They've granted them, but the French fishermen were like, I'm not going to change anything. I'm going to have the fish I had before Brexit, and started threatening to blockade. Then the French were like, right, we are going to cut off the electricity. Like blooming Putin
Unbelievable.
or something.
But do you know what was even more amazing was all these kind of Ramonery types who were like, this is what happens because of Brexit. We're going to war now because of you idiots, And then it was like, so you're unhappy with the fact that we're defending our own Channel Island, but you don't care that the French actually threatened to cut us off from electricity.
I mean, they didn't care
about that.
The Liberals
that's
should
okay.
be absolutely horrified by the threat of a small island having its electricity cut off by a massive, powerful France. And of course, Macron, he's trying to do the whole "I am big, I am strong" muscle man.
Except he's not.
He's not big
or strong.
The irony of
he's a sort of French Bercow in that area.
The irony of a French move, a French attack on us or anybody else. They've never won anything in their bloody lives.
No.
France.
Well, and did you hear what the UK
couple of World
diplomat
Cups? I did
said?
look this up.
Oh, did they?
Yeah.
The UK, one of the UK, I think, anonymous diplomat had said that Macron described Macron as having small D energy. And I don't know if I can say that word.
Yes, you can.
But it, rhymes with.
I think you can say
lick.
it rhymes with lick. I'm interested in your rhyming slang.
Yeah, so thank you very much.
No.
And I think it was a little bit rude, but there is this sort of image of Macron. He's not actually that small. He's 5'9".
Is he?
Because I was thinking of comparing him a bit to Napoleon, but Napoleon was 5'7".
And they were only just celebrating Napoleon's death, which is a weird thing to celebrate. It seems to me.
Strange.
Why would you celebrate Napoleon's death?
I know, rather
celebrate his
sad.
birth. By all means, but his death.
But the two men have one thing in common more than anything. They have a deep-seated jealousy of Britain. They hate Britain, but they love it. They admire us, but they want to stick it to us. They've got this, and Macron has that in oodles.
Well, Peter Hitchens actually wrote an interesting piece on Sunday about this. He said, actually, wasn't it great fun that we were back at war with the French, because actually we're quite similar.
It's like old times.
Yeah, it is. And we are kind of quite like each other in a funny sort of way.
We are.
Probably more than we would like to think. But I thought as well it was hilarious when the French all kind of came in, and then suddenly the British gunboats appeared. They just all left. I mean, there wasn't even any kind of hanging about. It was just like, oh Christ, let's go. And they all sort of immediately into reverse and back to Calais, which apparently they're now going to decide to blockade Calais, which actually effectively means they don't go anywhere.
Well, they're blockading themselves.
Yeah, they just literally stand on the boats and don't move them.
And this is all for the tiny breadcrumbs that our fishermen were given from the rubbish deal that they got. Tiny breadcrumbs, and that's how the French
But I, of course, had
react.
one of these historians on, who was obviously a Ramona as well, to talk about kind of, former sea battles that we'd had with the French, because not that we were, hamming it up or anything, This is going to be like the Battle of Trafalgar. Should we get HMS Victory out of the dock in Portsmouth, start getting out there. But he said, well, of course, the French have had access to our waters for a very long time. I said, well, no, they haven't. They've only had access since 1973, surely. What about the Battle of La Manche, which was back in like the 12th century, and he didn't really have anything to say. People are going, but they've always fished there. No, they haven't. They've only fished there since before, Hartlepool was a Tory seat. It's not that long ago.
And they didn't think twice about decimating our fishing industry and having our fishermen have to burn their boats. It's not there's not one single thought of the unfairness of it all from the French. And the sad thing is, Macron had a friend in us. We want to be friends. We're like a sitting duck friend for the French, and he keeps wanting to stick it to us instead.
Well, London is still, as far as I'm aware, the 13th biggest city in France, because so many French people live here,
over
right?
400,000 French.
Yeah.
Most of them around South Ken.
Right, there you go. Yeah. We'll make sure we keep an eye on them, because you never know. If you see them on the Serpentine, they might be trying to make some kind of a land grab. But I mean, I had the BBC, of course, doing the wrong thing as ever, took a crew over to France, and we're interviewing this guy who ran a fish shop. And he picked up a crab, and it was this lovely big sort of crab about this size. And he said, "This is a Jersey crab. You can't get them anywhere else. They're the most amazing crabs." And of course, we can't get them anymore. And it's like, that's not even true. Yeah. You can fish for them if you want. You just have to fill out a form and get permission.
We have to prove your history, I think,
and
as a French
maybe
fisherman.
pay us some money for taking the crabs out of the water. That would be fine.
Yeah, if we
What's
all
wrong with
rocked up
that?
in fishing boats off the coast of Nice, they might have something to say about it, mightn't they?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh gosh. And the likes of, the arch Ramonas were all getting ready to don their little EU flag military uniforms to go and join Macron in fighting our fishermen. And I think they were slightly disappointed that they couldn't join
well, they
their
hated the fact
natural
that Boris, because I was saying this to someone else, can you imagine Theresa May standing the gunboats?
No.
It would never have happened. She would have gone, should we organise a summit?
Yeah.
Let's have a meeting.
Should we send them some sandwiches?
Let's have tea and cake.
But I mean, I was masterstroke by Boris to do it because it cut it in, and people were arguing that night, even though they'd gone, how dangerous it was. Well, hang on, it's done what it was supposed to do. It's chased them all back to France. It's all over. Get lost.
And they were
tiny little mini Falklands for Boris there.
Yes,
I think
it was a mini Falklands.
I think so. I think it was brilliant. And I think, and it shows, because we sometimes forget, because he's allowed himself to be taken over by these nutty sage people. It allows us to remember why he was elected, and it's because of things like that.
I think with COVID behind us, hopefully, fingers crossed, that he might go back to the old Boris.
Fingers crossed.
Let's hope so. So, number 3 for you.
So I hope I'm not breaching protocols here, because this is someone that you did nominate last week, so I don't want to get into trouble with you.
No, you can nominate people more than once. I mean, Harry and Meghan literally haven't been off the list since January. I mean, they're in every single week.
So on the basis that this particular person, which is Gary Lineker, by the way, deserves it probably week after week after week, I'm going to nominate Gary Lineker. And the reason is, notwithstanding what you nominated him for, is that, of course, he's in trouble, inverted commas, as many people are, admittedly, over his tax and his IR35 in terms of this historic taxation that he allegedly owes on the basis of him being self-employed, but not being self-employed.
Yes.
And I guess, look, it's okay, and he may well be within the rules. I guess my point is, he's such a woke warrior. He's so right on. He's so self-righteous. Why was he trying to evade tax, albeit legally, to mitigate his tax position anyway, when this is the guy that stands up and tells us all what we should be doing? And how we should behave and how we should act. So surely, shouldn't he just pay his 40% and that's it, and get on with it, rather than trying to avoid it?
Well, you might also ask why he takes so much money out of the BBC, which is a publicly funded organisation.
He's had a pay cut,
when he clearly doesn't need.
Yeah,
exactly.
He's had a pay cut. He's
women
only
are
on
going to jail
1.4
for
million
him.
quid a year now. So come on. I mean, it's a bit like Gwyneth Paltrow, he's having a hard time. 1.4 million quid, how are you going to live on that?
I don't know.
I mean, it really is quite extraordinary. But I mean, you're quite right. I mean, I would on most cases side with the person who was fighting the HMRC on this, because I think it's actually quite an unfair burden they're trying to put on.
Because it's retrospective.
Because it's retrospective as well. They're basically saying, well, I know that you thought you could do this, and your accountant said you could do it, and it was quite legal to do it when you did it, but we're now telling you can't do it, and we're going to come after you and punish you for doing it. And I think his bill for national insurance alone is over $1 million, isn't it?
So it's 4.9 million in total, which is the PAYE, national insurance and corporation tax.
I mean, they're basically saying that while he was working at the BBC, he should have been paid as an employee of the BBC. And I think the reason they started all of this was because they thought a lot of people that were working at the BBC were just using this as a kind of device. So they'd set up a personal service company, they'd get that company to be paid. But I mean, effectively, the government have now made it almost impossible to operate in a way which is in any way beneficial
the 4.9
without
million
being employed anyway.
Is the difference, presumably, between what he should have paid and what he did pay.
Well, that's what they'll say.
So my question to Mr. Lineker would be, what do you think can be bought in the public sector for 4.9 million?
Yes.
How many kids can go to school?
Yeah.
How many nurses?
How many nurses?
How many fire
How many refugees can he put up in a hotel? Because of course he brought one to his house, although we never actually saw the guy, so we don't really know if he had one in his house
I think
or not.
he's a massive hypocrite, and will hopefully, to your point earlier, continue to be so.
Also, if he's offered the chance by HMRC to pay up, why doesn't he just pay up?
Well, he'll presumably fight it
and put money back. Well, he is fighting it, because apparently this has gone back to about a year ago. He's now appealing it. So this is the first we found out about it. Was this
So
weekend?
he's appealing on the basis he doesn't want to pay the tax.
Presumably,
I mean, I get your tax point, but to be honest, the hypocrisy of it is the major point. Because wasn't he the same guy that preached to everyone about wearing masks in supermarkets and how to go at people not wearing masks? And then he was photographed not wearing a mask in a supermarket. And this is what people hate. It's actually not the little things. Because we all make mistakes and we all get things wrong now and again. It's the preaching, the hypocrisy, and it's millionaires telling the average Joe blogs on the street all the rules they should adhere to, while poncing off and doing whatever they like. It is. It's not right.
Yes.
Mary Antoinette.
It is.
They're
That's exactly right.
Let them eat shit.
I don't. Yeah, you can't say that. I mean, they might let it go, but I very much doubt it. My final nominee is the FA. Speaking of which is not what you think it is, it's the Football Association, because they've decided to rebadge the Three Lions. Now, the Three Lions is an iconic brand, right? You buy your T-shirt or your football shirt for your kids, it's got 3 lions, because that's what the English symbol of battle is, right? I mean, it's been standard that you hold up. I mean, talk about Agincourt. Yeah. I think they held up the 3 lions in Agincourt, didn't they?
Well, it's the king's emblem, wasn't it?
Yeah.
3 gold lions.
So three gold lions. It's also the title of a song, famously sung by the Lightning Seeds. 3 lions on my shoulder. They're going to have to rewrite the lyrics.
David Baddiel, yeah.
David Baddiel, Skinner. That's right. It was the 1996 anthem for the Euros, right? Which was
and
brilliant.
they're brave enough to be funny.
Yeah, well, they were, but not anymore, I'm afraid.
They've been cancelled.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
They can't be funny anymore. But, so now here's what they've done. They've changed the 3 lions, right? So now there's a daddy lion, there's a mummy lion, and there's a baby lion. So, I mean, first of all, they've got it completely wrong, because surely if you're going to rebrand it, you have to brand it with every available gender. Now, according to the BBC, there's at least 97 types of gender, right? This is on a BBC educational children's show, by the way. So they've 97 lines is what they need on the shirt, not.
But that's not quite got the same ring to it in a tune.
97 lines on my shirt. Well, neither is a daddy lion, a mummy lion, and a baby lion on my shirt either.
That's like the 3 bears.
It does sound like 3 bears. But I mean, this is apparently they've also rebranded the FA. And they're now calling it England Football.
Oh, stop it.
I don't know what's
Why
wrong with the Football
politicise
Association.
Women haven't been protesting on the street saying we want a mummy female lion on the crest. We haven't been. No one said a word. It's a group of weirdos sat round a table in some small little stinky room going, what words and images can we make really offensive and tell people they're weapons that hurt them now? Oh, 3 lions on the shirt.
So the Football Association has male connotations or something, does it?
Well, I've got no idea. As a woman, I don't
here's
feel
what they've done,
excluded
right? This
by
is
the
apparently,
3 lions.
and this is how I find. I mean, I'd love to have a job. I know there are lots of people who have jobs which are, I don't understand. How about this, right? The New England Football Badge, which is the culmination of an 18-month project by design studio Matter, represents every part of the football industry. They've taken 18 months to come up with this.
How much does this cost?
Well, you wonder. So Lioness and Cubs stand for men's, women's and children's football. And then it says, but they've also removed the iconic shield and the roses.
Why?
And the crown, the king's crown?
Well, the crown wasn't there, but there were roses and there was a shield. And they've all gone now. Presumably, I don't know why. Why wouldn't you want a shield?
I don't know the symbolism.
I mean, it's not even a sword. It's not like it's a piece of.
But now,
it's not a weapon.
Now the seal is broken. Where does it stop? Because what about the disabled? What about the people who are triggered by lions? What about people who feel very scared about?
Hang on, there's a lion in a wheelchair.
What about the single? There's no. That's
where's the disabled lion? Come on. I mean, let's be fair.
But this is true. You are opening a Pandora's box, and for sport to be politicised, it's so unfair.
Also, maybe as we were discussing earlier, you should put a few other animals in.
Well, it's discriminatory. It's discriminatory against leopards.
Panther.
A
puma.
Tigers. Where's the poor tigers? It's tigerist. Not to have a tiger. In there.
It's so sad. And the rugby.
It says here, look, hang on. It says here, I don't know what they do with the rugby. It says the 10 roses have been omitted to show that football is for everyone.
But why wasn't it before? I don't get it.
What's that got to do with roses?
I don't know. Is it some England connotation? Red rose?
Apparently there was no real reason why they were there in the first place. Well, apart from the fact that there's an English rose, which is something like the famous flower of England, isn't it?
Yeah.
Isn't it?
I have no idea.
I mean, you refer to people as English roses, don't you?
And I bet the bill was £1 million
probably
to change all that.
I know. I'm not up for all this inclusive stuff. I think it's actually quite damaging and starts to divide on so many levels. Because what are you chaps thinking? Who are these women barking on about wanting a woman lion? And no one is. There is no movement putting pressure for this to happen. It's just a group of, 5, 6 people
and a lion cub. I mean, surely if you're going into battle, i.e. a football match, which should be like going into battle because you want to win it.
You wouldn't take your kids with you.
You take your 3 lions and away you go, don't you? you come on, son. You come and fight them as well. I know that you do, and your wife. I mean, I know that's going to sound horrifically sexist, but it's just ridiculous, isn't it?
What are the cricket? Isn't the crest for cricket the 3 lions as well? Are they?
I think so. Well, they probably have to now.
They'll have to. Like the beginning now.
Rugby will have to do it as well, presumably.
Well, rugby's now banned the Saxon name they give for one of their English team. English.
I'm a bit worried about Essex. So Essex, it's 3 swords. So presumably they're going to have to go. It's going to have to be a sword.
Well, I mean, to be honest,
a knitting needle.
I wouldn't mind if Essex was actually just discommunicated from Britain altogether.
Well, we do seek our independence, actually, or rather Canvey Island on Essex.
Yes,
I can tell you
that's fine. What about the Isle of Sheppey? Is that in Essex?
That's Kent.
Is it?
Yeah,
that's not great. So now we've got the final 3 from each of us. That's 9. We're going to carry over Harry and Meghan, right? So that makes 10, top 10. But we need to get it down to 3. So you guys now have to choose each other's favourite. So why don't you choose Russell's? Tell us what your 3
were.
So
my recap was the London electorate for being stupid enough to re-elect Sadiq Khan, Gwyneth Paltrow, and yet again Gary Lineker.
So
I'm going to
which
have
one?
to go with Gwynny.
Okay, I think
Because
it's a
she's
good
such fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
She is fun. Right, so you tell me your three.
So my three, it was Macron, it was the New Zealand Olympic Committee,
Oh, yes.
and it was John Bercow.
Oh, I think it's going to be Macron, isn't it? It's got to be Macron for the failed Battle of Waterloo or whatever it was.
Well, his vaccine rollout's
Sacre
already been
bleu.
called the
I know.
Waterloo of vaccines.
I know, absolutely hopeless. So Macron goes into the mix. And so my
Such an
three,
insult, isn't it?
GMB, Good Morning Britain, Keir
Yeah.
Starmer and the English FA.
Ooh,
Actually, those are three good ones. I
Yeah,
have
no,
to
no,
say.
I-
it's very difficult to choose between
Yeah,
those three.
yeah. Hard to know, isn't it?
I mean, Keir Starmer definitely deserves it, doesn't he?
He
Not
does.
just for the election loss, but the way he handled the reshuffle
Yes.
thereafter. And will
It's
continue
definitely
to
been a
be
bad week for him.
plank. But I think he'll have his day again, won't he?
He will.
He'll be back. So I guess, I don't know. What do you think? It's tough.
I would go for the FA. Because
Yeah, I think
It's
so.
a good one.
I think
yeah,
so.
I think
it's
they've
it's a good
really
one.
they've really let this country
It
down.
is
They've let
woke.
the side down.
Yeah, they have let the
it's
side
woke
down.
gone mad, isn't
It
it?
is. Woke gone mad. Okay, so Gwyneth, Emmanuel Macron and the English FA. Who's going to win? Given
Well-
that the other two will be second and third, obviously. So they are. These are the top three planks. I would suggest it should be Macron actually, because that was horrendous.
Yeah.
What went on there?
It was silly, sort of
Really stupid.
Yeah, muscle
Yeah.
kissing, willy wagging,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah, and then the retreat, which
It's
they're
like
used
get
to.
your
of
willy
course.
out, but actually it's not very big, and you
Yeah.
shouldn't be wagging it
Run
around.
off 'cause
Put
everyone
it away.
laughs.
Yeah, put
Yeah,
it
yeah.
away.
Put it away.
Macron.
It's nothing to look at.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah,
nothing
yeah.
to see
Put
here.
the snake back in the basket.
You know, exactly.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with that.
I think Macron gets
So
it.
Emmanuel
Just a
Macron
bit
wins
silly.
plank of the week. Should we give Gwyneth second place just for
Yeah,
because I know
she's
you'd
fun.
like that.
I
but
do.
she is
I
fun.
like her, and I
She's
just wanted to
wonderful.
keep
Great
talking.
value.
She makes
And
me
the
laugh
English
so much.
FA.
She's
So-
great value, but her candles aren't.
No, exactly right. So, Zut alors, the winner of Plank of the Week is indeed a French. He is Emmanuel Macron. Thanks to Belinda and thanks to Russell for coming in. We'll see you again very soon. We'll see you next time.